Hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly, and I'm so excited you're here tonight because we are completing the final and fourth video in the Gnomes for Winter series. So a few days ago, we created this fun layout with texture using background papers, and then we did some fun play on tags to scrapbook Hattie Elaine's first birthday party. Before that, we created a little bit of faux snow, did some fun tearing techniques, and used some step-up photos to go in a lower to upper linear fashion across the layout, and we had these playful standalone gnomes that were slip sliding all around the layout. And then the first layout in this series, we did a sledding page where we did a little contour cutting on the right side of the page so that those gnomes were slip sliding almost off the page. I did a little bending of his hat. I'm going to have to fix that. But that was so much fun. We did some treatments on the gnomes. We did some background stamping, some sponging, and all kinds of fun. I'm going to link all three of those videos up in the description in case you're itching to get started with those. And tonight we're finishing. This is the final layout in the Gnomes for Winter series. We're using a gutted frame, a 12 by 12 striped pattern paper, gutting that out from 1 inches to 11 inches all the way around. And we're going to finish out the Winter Wonderland with Hattie Elaine and her first birthday photos. And I'm just going to choose a couple of my favorites as focal photos. And we're going to do a wreath style layout, which is very popular. It's seen a lot. It can be traditional or it can be whimsical. And we're going to actually create some scribble circles, and we're going to create scribble circles using a paper plate. Now I'm going to link in the description how I make scribble circles on the Cricut, and also how I make Cricut cut scribble circles, as well as using the Cricut pen to make scribble circles. But we didn't have the option to add Cricut cuts to this workshop, so we're going to use a paper plate, real scientific. I'm using my black LePen, and I'm just going to center a circle, and I actually don't get very centered, and hindsight is 20/20. I wish I was a little lower on the paper, but it worked and I went with it. So now I'm just offsetting, and I'm actually tracing the paper plate 3 times and crossing those circle lines over to make a scribble circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. There's going to be lots of things on the scribble circle. We're going to be adding some treatments to it, and we're going to save that paper plate because we're going to need that. Okay, so now I'm actually, again, being super scientific. I'm using a pencil eraser, and I'm just going to do some dots all the way around the scribble circles for some added texture, some added interest, and some added fun. Now, in the last 3 layouts, I talked about not really being able to add a ton of product to the workshop because close to my heart needs to keep it in a manageable bundle. But if you happen to have some white gloss spray in your stash, if you happen to have white diamond stickles in your stash, there's so many things that you could do here. But I decided to have a play with some of the ink that we're already using and a regular household pencil eraser. If you want to use a brand new eraser and have really perfect circles, you can do that. I opted to use a pretty well-worn eraser to have just a whimsical, different kind of a blotchy in the background. And then we're going to do a little bit of inking with some Ballerina ink. Now I opted to go on the outside of each circle with these dots. If you're going to go on the outside of one, I would go on the outside of all of them. If you're going to go on the inside of one, I would go on the inside of all of them. And just sort of, you're creating a random pattern not so randomly, if that makes sense. There's really no right or wrong. It's just going to be a fun play. And these wreath style layouts have been around for so long. Sometimes there's pencil mark in the background or markering in the background to make the circle. Sometimes there's Cricut cuts to make the circle or die cuts to make the circle. Sometimes there's vines or leaves to make the circle. Sometimes it's absolutely just your icons. and that would work just fine if you wanted to just use the adorable Stamp and Thin Cuts in the Winter Gnome Stamp and Thin Cut set and make your circle out of that. I find that I tend to like a little bit of inking or something in the background to create the circle that sort of gives me a little bit of a guide to follow. So even though white gloss spray isn't in this workshop, I have opted to do a little splattering with it and having a little fun with it since I already have it in my arsenal and in my stash. You can see I got a pretty big blob there, but I end up covering that up later with an icon. So I didn't go over these sizes, but while I'm adding my liquid glue to the gutted frame, we're going to have an 11 1/4 by 11 1/4 inch pine. And I forgot to mention that I'll link in the description again this free guide that has all of the cutting measurements for all 7 pages for the 3 2-page layouts, and then this single layout using the scrapbooking workshop bundle, which I went over in great detail in the first video in this series, and I did a review of all of the product that's in that Gnomes for Winter scrapbooking workshop kit. I will link that on the shop site here if you want to check that out. But again, it's a pine 11 1/4 by 11 1/4, and then the piece that we were doing the circles on is 11 by 11 white daisy. Here we have all kinds of little fun Stamp and Thin Cuts from the Winter Gnome scrapbooking Stamp and Thin Cut set, which I did review in that first video, but I have some light and dark espresso sleds. I have some light and dark pine trees. I have some mittens, and they are light pine, dark pine, sapphire, periwinkle, and then there is a pair of the crisscross pattern and the snowflake pattern, the distressed snowflake pattern. And then I have 7 snowmen, and the markers that are recommended in the workshop guide, burnt orange is what I'm using now on all of the noses. And then I used the true blue on 2 of the snowmen on the scarves and the hat. And then I used the green on 3 of the snowmen, and then I used the lavender on 2 of the snowmen. And of course, these go well with my photos. These go well with the workshop colors. So these are the markers that I chose. I also have some photos here of Hattie Elaine, and her shirt is a little bit lighter blue than the blues in the workshop, or not so much a lighter blue, but just an off color blue. And so that true blue, having 3 different color choices of blue, really helped me to tie in her photos as well. So I'm just actually coloring one, so that you can see how I've done that. And then I'm showing you the markers here, and I'll do the rest of those off camera. Super simple coloring. You barely touch with your marker. I don't even know if you can consider it coloring because you're just barely touching those little spots with your marker. There's no shading required or anything like that. So now I'm just rotating my circles, and I'm sort of deciding the direction that I want to go. I'm going to be a little heavier with some paper and some icons to the left. So I'm going to allow the right side to go closer to the edge. In hindsight, I would have centered just a little bit better like I did on the master, but it'll totally work and it'll be beautiful. I love using wreath style layouts for focal photos. I do this a lot when I only have 1 or 2 photos that I'm going to use. Once in a great while, there's a photo or 2 that really deserve top billing, that I often try to be so functional and always have companion pages that have lots of photo opportunities, so that you can get functional scrapbooking and decorative scrapbooking all in one. So what I've done here in the designated white daisy piece, I have used the paper plate so that the bottom of that white daisy piece will perfectly fit in one of the drawn circles. And now I'm making snow. So I'm just going to tear higher on the left and lower on the right to make a little swoop of snow that's going to rest in the bottom and be popped up. We're going to treat that with a little bit of that clear shimmer brush, just like we did in the other 3 videos for the other snow. Again, if you have white gloss spray, if you have white stickles, there's so many things that you can do to treat your white paper to make it look like snow. So you can play and have fun. I'm simply using what was recommended for the workshop, so that if you're wanting to work in the confines of the workshop and you don't have a lot of extra product, that you're able to get a beautiful result with what you have to use. So I'm just painting a little bit of the clear shimmer brush. I'm having a little trouble. I think I'm getting to the end of the shimmer brush, so I'm squeezing pretty hard. I like to use every last drop of that beautiful glittery stuff. I'm so happy to have Hattie Elaine's first birthday taken care of now with these 7 pages in Winter Gnomes. And the focus of this workshop, which was a direction from close to my heart, was to have 2 layouts that were heavy on the standalone gnome, and then 2 layouts in the series that were more focused on the scrapbooking stamp and thin cut to show people that they can go in either direction or both. So now I'm showing you the dimensions of these pieces. So the snow piece, I believe, is 3 by 3. I'm not able to quite see here, but you can see those measurements on those 3 pieces, and you can refer again to the instruction guide, the free instruction guide, which I've linked in the description, on those exact pieces. And I'm just going to be layering them and make them look like full pieces, but they're faux pieces. And then I'm going to strategically arrange the photos over the top so that those pieces peek out, and you will never be more the wiser that they're just little tiny pieces. Now, I have this winter memory sticker that I want to use, but I feel like the white on the white doesn't quite pop the way that I think it should. And so I'm going to mount it on a designated piece of periwinkle cardstock. And this piece is designated at the exact right size, and it's designated in the cut guide. I just grabbed a piece of my periwinkle scrap, added the sticker to that, and I'm leaving just a tiny little edge all the way around so that when I mount that on the bottom with foam tape, it's going to have a little bit of pop to it, and it's going to show up a little bit better. It's such a pretty sticker with the periwinkle snowflakes embedded in the back of it, and winter memories are wonderful. Like I've said on the last 3 videos, Hattie Elaine is our only winter grandchild, and so we have lots of winter memories about Hattie Elaine, her birth, and all of her birthday parties. And so I have a feeling she's going to be our winter girl for a very, very long time. We think we're done having grandchildren. Like that's up to us. So we're not sure. You never know. Never say never. We could get a wonderful, amazing surprise. But we think that Waylon James is our last one, and Waylon James is 2, and we have grandchildren all the way up to age 19. So Hattie Elaine is somewhere in the middle. Even though she was only 1 in these photos. I don't scrap chronologically. I kind of scrap chronologically, but then I have gaps, and I sort of wait for the right paper, or wait for the mood, or wait for, certain things. So now I've actually mounted all 3 pieces like they're supposed to be on top. I'm coming back in with Ballerina and adding that little bit of sponging in the background. We've done a lot of sponging in the last 3 layouts of this series. Again, like I said in the other layouts, if your photos lend themselves to a different color of sponging in the background, you can totally adjust and make it your own. That's why it's fun. I do flip this paper over because there just happens to be a cute little sentiment on the top that I wanted to show. That was a complete accident. When you cut word paper, sometimes it just totally works out. So I'm toggling the two photos and then arranging the paper pieces in the back. I'll be popping up the snow that we created with foam tape, and then comes the fun. So now you can see Winter Memories on the bottom with that little bit of periwinkle just makes it pop. And now we get to play. We're going to play and just have fun making a wreath. And like I said, these wreath style layouts they are still trendy, even though they've been a technique that's been around or a pattern that's been around for a long time, particularly for a single photo. I see that a lot. I use that a lot. I've done wreath style with fall wreaths. I've done Valentine's wreath style. I've done leaf. I do florals like in springtime. Like I've done square wreaths. I've done where the pieces are actually underneath a top layer and you're piecing that together. I've actually done a toy wreath, and I can actually link that in the description. I had so much fun with that. I believe it was called Let's Play, and it was the Let's Play Stampin' Thin Cut set, and I did a wreath style with toys all the way around the circle and some inking techniques, and it's something that I don't feel guilty or bad about reusing, because they all have a tendency to look slightly different, and they're focusing on your photos, and so often they're not next to each other in your scrapbooks. You know, they might be in a year later, or they might be 2 years later, or they might be in 3 albums down the row, and it's such a wonderful technique to go back to. And I love to steal ideas from my own self as well as other inspiration from others, and just reuse a lot of bases. It isn't uncommon for me to apply patterns, and that's why I always tell my paper crafters, even if it happens to be a particular workshop that you're not fond of, that you decide not to do, that you don't particularly like the theme, or you don't have photos that go with that theme, I always tell my paper crafters, go to the shop site, download the free guides, because they're amazing patterns. You can apply these patterns to any other paper pack. In fact, that's what I love to do, to be a little bit different. Sometimes I will take like the patterns that are up and coming and apply those to current papers, or I will take current papers and apply those to patterns of workshops that were in the past, and it just gives you a little bit of a different take, and gives you a little bit of a jumping off point for your layouts. And then for every scrapbooking workshop that we do, we have 2 or 3 scrapbooking workshops in our stash that we haven't used up yet, and then we start to get frustrated, and we like, oh, I need to use my stuff up. So sometimes it's fun to actually do a double, and sometimes I'll do that with grandkids. I will apply like one workshop to the papers they go with for one grandchild, and then I will take a scrapbooking workshop kit from my stash and apply the same workshop for a different grandchild. That works really well for like boy, girl, older, younger. You can apply those themes. So now, as you can see, I have gone around and I have arranged all of those bits and pieces, my favorite part. And on every cluster series, I usually like to pop up one piece in the cluster. So I'm popping up the snowmen on top of the trees. I'm popping up one mitten and each mitten cluster, except for the 2 little pine mittens that come underneath the title. I felt like those were okay flush. I did have to do some double popping on the pieces that I was working on just there, because the titles popped up already and the snow is popped up already. So to get the snowman flush, I had to do a double pop. A double pop, the lingo. And I love this part. I love dimension. I have some paper crafters that absolutely will never ever use foam tape ever. They love linear, they love straight, they love perfectly round instead of hodgepodge round. They love square corners, they love flush, and I'm amazed at how beautiful their layouts turn out, and then also how dimensional and beautiful they turn out for people like me who love to pop. You do you, boo. That's what I always say. You make it your own. And close to my heart loves when people take what they've put out there and tweak it and change it and arrange it so that it fits for them, and that even though everyone has a jumping off pattern, they've made it their own and it can look completely different. So the only criticism I have for myself on this one is I'm a little top heavy because from the get-go, I got my paper plates just a little bit high. I love it still. I'm going to go for it still. And I actually could even do some sort of a little paper element or design element or journaling on that lower left to help balance that out. There's a little bit too much space on the bottom and not on the top, but sometimes once you get into it so deep, you got to keep going. And you can see on my master, in the master workshop, that it is a little bit more balanced. It's a little bit lower, but I can take it. I'm okay. This is about scrapping the memories, and not every page is going to be perfectly perfect and perfectly aligned. And my children and my grandchildren that look at this and read about Hattie Elaine's first birthday are not going to care. Sometimes we're harder on ourselves than anyone. So now I'm going to come back in with those acrylic snowflakes. And I always say when I get to this point in the process video that I'm getting happy. So that means that all of the playful fun and all of the work of the Winter Gnome series is coming to a close. I hope you've loved this series, and I really, really hope that you've played along and that your product has come and you've played along and that you've really, really enjoyed it. And if you are connected with me, connect with me on Facebook, connect with me on Pinterest, connect with me on the blog via email. I would love for you, if you go to my Facebook business page that's linked in the description, to post your take. I would love to see what you've done and the photos you've chosen. It really, really does all of us makers good to see what everyone does with the pages that Close to My Heart puts out for you and that we as makers put out for you as well. We love to see your memories scrapped. It's super satisfying. Leave me a comment, hit subscribe, like, share, follow. It goes a long ways on YouTube and it keeps me motivated to keep them coming. Happy scrapping, everyone. I can't wait to see what you've done with our fun and playful Winter Gnome series. Have a good one. Bye-bye.